You're listening to Pro Booth Talk, education and insights for photo booth company owners.
Welcome to Pro Booth Talk, everyone. How are you doing today, Lap?
Hi, Jason. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. I'm doing good today.
So this doesn't happen to me very often, not nearly as often as other people in the industry, I believe you included, but my friend Kanish over in Indiana, I think he's in Indiana, messaged me a few weeks ago to suggest that a photo he found in an ad looked familiar. So he sent me a link and I went and checked it out, and sure enough, it was a setup photo of one of our setups, but it was so easily identified because we have a trademark red bowler that all our staff wears, and sure enough, one of our hosts, Kelsey, is in the photo with her red bowler, and they're using this for advertisement. How does this happen to you often? I imagine it does, but I don't know.
I want to say it does happen to me. I don't know too often when it does, but I know like my setup shot. This is really frustrating is we have a lot of beautiful 360 setup shots, and the one that I keep seeing stolen is the worst setup shot. So it's like, it trips me out for people to not only steal content that's not theirs, but I've seen like one of our 360 setup shots where they actually photoshopped in a 360 wrap with their logo onto the platform.
Awesome.
They changed the colors, yeah, and it's embarrassing because I hate that setup shot. For whatever reason, we were limited on the outlet, so you can see like a cord, which we try to stay very clean with our setups. This setup, we were so tight on like the logistics loading in and like the limited one access outlet that we had. We didn't have enough extensions, very short notice, different circumstances, but whatever. There's like a cord that's hanging from one of the lights. This is before we went battery powered LEDs. So there's this cord that's hanging, and I don't understand why this photo keeps getting used and stolen, because if you're going to steal a setup shot, why are you not stealing one of the great photos? Why are you stealing this photo that has like this disgusting cord? And this is from my, you know what I mean? Like,
it's funny because you don't even want to call people out because you don't want to claim the photo, so you just yes! Let it go.
I know it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like, it's one of those events where just for whatever circumstances there was, like that cord was there, and I hate it, and I keep seeing it stolen, and it keeps reminding me of like that one time when we had the cord that was hanging, and I hate it. I hate having to call them out on it. And like, it was because there was like these beautiful floral backdrop that was in the 360. It was a beautiful event. Just that one cord. But yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand like stealing setup shots, especially companies. And I've seen this a lot. The companies that do steal, it's not just your output photos, your setup shots. They're stealing setup shots and outputs that are all over the map. So they're not even consistent with like the look and feel of that service that they're selling, which I don't understand, because like the clients that I have, when we sell a 360, what they see on our social media, our marketing, our website, that's what they assume we're gonna get. And I can't imagine showing up with something totally different. That's I'm talking about bizarre. Like not just the setup, but like then your output too, like if you are stealing. I had one of my glam photos, and I'm sure there's people that have stolen them that I don't know about, but there was one in particular that really upset me that stole my glam photo. And when it was brought to their attention, I got the very generic my website, what's that?
The
what's
web
that
developer
excuse that they always? My web developer must have put it on. And I just think like, man, we are all in the same industry. We all know what these excuses are. Like, just I'm already addressing it with you. Just be upfront, like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Take it down. I'm gonna take it down right now. Instead of like blaming other people. And it's insane to steal my content and then tell me that I am lucky and blessed that they see value in the content that I'm putting out. Like that is, I can't even believe that's like a whole nother level of, I don't even have words for it. But you know, if you're stealing glam content, like my glam, we custom write my glam. So the filter is not one that you can buy. You can't replicate it because I write it in house. Like I know there's some people that have, you know, asked me like, you know, what is it in your glam that's different? Like I have spent weeks and days and hours, you know, tweaking like the darks, the contrast, the blacks, the highlights, you know, the sharpness. It's all custom made and very, very specific to how I wanted my glam to look. So it's not easy to replicate, if even possible, you know, because I make my darks a certain dark, I make my highlights. And so it's like, if you're stealing my glam, you should at least have a decent glam, you know, like if you're showcasing the type of, because my glam is very heavy handed. Like it's, you know, there's different levels of glam, and mine tends
Sure,
to
and I
be
would think
very,
if they have a good glam, they wouldn't be stealing yours to begin with.
yeah.
So they
And
must not.
the crazy, yeah, the crazy thing is like when I started offering glam, it wasn't something that you really could buy like off the shelf. And now glam is like available in most software built in. There's some pretty good glam in like the iPad software, you know, DSLR software. Like it's pretty easily accessible now versus like when I first started offering it where, you know, you really had to custom program it. So I don't even understand the laziness of stealing one of my, you literally can just go in, grab one of your old photos and process it post production and replicate your own glam, even though it's not an actual glam event. You know, that feels very lazy to me. And you're selling yourself to your client as something that you don't even know you can actually deliver.
Yeah, I feel that way every time I see stock photos too, because they're typically the same stock photos, and they're clearly not real events. And I don't know if only we can recognize that because we're in the industry, and maybe clients see that and think it looks like a good event and good outputs. And obviously that's fine and legal, and if that's what you want to do is pay, because at least you're paying for them, then I mean, and sure, we know that it's not your web developer. I would say most people out there price shopping and charging $300 for a photo booth are likely, in most cases, also their own web developer. So maybe maybe it is their web developer, because you know web developers cost money. That's like I did my own website. Most people do their own website. It's once you get to a certain point, maybe you'll pay someone to touch it up or fix it or buy a template or something like that. But most people are doing their own website, and I would think that 360 setup probably keeps coming up. I'll have to do a test, but I bet if you Google, I bet Google is just ranked really high. So I bet people are pulling it from there. I did have somebody once. I see a lot of people on the groups mention over and over and over again that people are stealing their content and always calling people out. But I know there's ways to search one image at a time, but as far as like, I don't know if there's a way to just cache your entire website and look if anyone's using your images, and it's just not worth it to me to look one image at a time, unfortunately. But I did do a copy search once and found a company in Hawaii that was using like almost all of my copy from all of my pages describing their photo booths, so just all the text from my website. And I also found a guy that was strangely stole word for word my Indeed posting looking for staff. And I'm just like, is your business that identical to mine? Like this description, the hour, like everything was identical. He didn't change anything. It was kind of strange, but same thing. And I've never reached out to someone personally. I mean, I don't care for it and I don't condone it, but like this one Kanish just sent me last month. I didn't reach out to the company. I probably should have, but it's one photo and it's I don't know. It wasn't, I didn't think it was worth my time to cause issue over it. But what's important
there's something that you can do where you can take down their website and take down their social media when you report it. And I don't know, Jason, I don't agree with like just like brushing it off, because there's some people whose content is constantly, stolen and ripped off. And I don't know, like I just feel like if you don't take action, even if it's just one photo, it just it I don't know, like I feel like you have to take a stand on it just so that hopefully it discourages people. Of course, like, with Disney copyright, people still use Disney stuff, but still there's always that, fear of like you being that one person that's caught. And
I
I don't
don't
know.
disagree, and you're right. I should reach out to them. I shouldn't let it go, because every time you let it go, it just encourages them to do it more often. And as a new company, like if you're just getting started and you don't realize this is a bad thing to do, it is, and will instantly cause a lot of people in our industry to not want to work with you or not want to help you. And in fact, most of the groups, I think maybe all the groups, if someone mentions your company and your website as someone who has stolen photos or content from other websites, they'll just ban you right away, and you won't have access to those communities, which are incredibly valuable.
Yeah. And it's not even just a disservice like to our industry, but like if you're stealing content and you're not able to produce not even the output, but to produce the aesthetics of those setups, like you're doing a disservice to your clients and you're selling them a company that you aren't. You aren't this company that you're selling yourself as. And I just feel like that really devalues our industry as a whole. When these companies showcase work and like setups and just a whole brand that they aren't, and then they show up as a whole different company with output that is nowhere near what they're selling, I just feel like that really devalues our industry as a whole. That really hurts all of us. I mean, it makes all of us seem like we really aren't as valuable, like we don't bring what we're selling. I it cheapens our service as a whole, as an industry.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I feel so strongly about it. Not just because, I mean, honestly, a lot of the glam right now, you can replicate, you can get pretty close to, the glam that I custom wrote. I don't even use my glam that frequently because it's so heavy handed. I don't even use it that frequently anymore. The resources are there, they're available to you. And as owners, you have all the equipment, you have all the software. If you don't have your own content, you can easily, we talked about this before, Jason, like do a party for free, like offer to do like an event for your family and get that content. It takes you, 2 hours. It takes you just as long to search on the internet for images as it does for you to go and just do a party, host a party, and like showcase your services. And, when you showcase your services, you're exposing your brand and your services to your family, your friends, and that has reach from your family and friends. Their family, their friends might be able to see the content. So you can use that as a marketing opportunity as well, versus stealing content takes you the same amount of time, but you really risk a lot. You risk your peers trusting you, like they don't see integrity if you are one of these people who are stealing content, and you risk the being kicked out of a lot of these groups is a huge thing because there's so much opportunity within the groups for learning, for growth and opportunity. It's not a small thing to be viewed as someone that the industry and your peers don't trust.
Yeah, when we both started, I mean, there probably were some groups around. I know there was some internet forums, not necessarily Facebook groups, but largely we were on our own trying to figure out how to do these softwares and do new things, and it was a lot more difficult. It was certainly way more difficult, and there was a huge jump in the industry. I'm pretty sure Dave is the first one that did a photo booth network in a Facebook group, but it certainly increased
Which David?
Dave Stevenson.
Oh, Dave Stevenson.
I think, anyways. I'm not sure who created the first one, but I know he created Photo Booth Network, and I feel like that was the first one. I don't know. So is that what you did though when you
Sheree
first
did
started?
one.
You just hosted what was that?
Sheree had photo booth talk. It wasn't a
Oh yeah,
Facebook group, but it was like, yeah.
I mean, Dave, I think specifically did the first Facebook group, but Cherie had a forum, and so did Mike Bender. So they both had forums before Facebook kind of took over forums, and now forums are kind of dead, I think.
Yeah.
But when you got started, I imagine you did the party for your friends and family. Did you do anything else to collect content, or is that pretty much all you did?
I never intentionally became a business, so it was never, I never had any marketing or advertising in my mind. And I didn't even know there was an entire photo booth industry. I didn't know there was networks. I didn't know I remember Cherie's forum, but I thought it was just like a small, I didn't realize it was as big as it was, because you don't see like members like you do on the Facebook groups. So I didn't know there was a whole industry. It was really just something I did as a pastime, something that I was very obsessed with at the time, like instantly photos with, because I started as a photographer, self-taught photographer. So I started as self-taught photographer. I was obsessed with like branding the event title onto photos. So I would snap it as a photographer and like I think I used Photoshop, or what's the other one, whatever other Adobe software, to overlay the logo. And then people just started calling me once I was using social media. So I was posting like the stuff that I was doing. And then people started seeing that work and calling me. So they're hiring me based off of the work they were seeing, but it was just family and friends reaching out. So, it was dirt cheap. And, I've been really lucky that I've been able to, since I started as a photographer, my setup has not always been on point. I've had really horrible, we talked about this before. I'm embarrassed of, the holes I popped into boxes and called a photo booth, but the content I've always had. Yeah. The content I've always had. So I've always been able to like market. Once I like moved more into, when I realized there was an industry and started marketing photo booth services, I had my own images and they all look great. I just didn't post those setup shots because those looked horrible, with tons and tons of props and wigs all over the place and tripod stands, and it was a mess. Like I don't look back to that. If I was starting now, I mean, I think there's so many resources now that we didn't have back then, because like you were saying, when we started 10, 12 years ago, we were all trying to figure everything out ourselves. Now, I mean, there's so much education. There's so many groups that like promote courses, and like PB photo booth marketing has a lot of material that you can use when you sign up as a member. There's just so much out there now. And even if you're not on PBM or anything like that, like even just stock websites, because photo booths have grown so much in the last 10 years, you can find stock photo booth images. I don't personally use them myself because I want our actual event photos there. But if you're starting out, I mean, and you can't set up a party, get a stock image of photo booth photos. Don't steal from peers, because it's a very small community. You'd be surprised. You see 20,000 members, but believe it or not, most of us all are interconnected. There's that whole, what's that rule of like seven levels of separation or something like that? Like we're all very closely
I can't remember
connected.
what it's called. 7 degrees of bacon or something like that, or
7 degrees of separation. Bacon, no.
The movie version. But you're right. It's a small community, and if I don't see it, someone else, a friend, will see it and share it with me. And typically that's what we see is on the Facebook group. Someone will say, hey, I found my image on this site. Everyone else go look and see if your images are there as well. And that site is typically banned from the group. And also if people are reporting it to Google, I mean, obviously you don't want to get your site blacklisted, because then you might as well just close your business. But like Lap had mentioned, there's tons of resources for new companies right now. It's the easiest time ever for material, besides photo booth marketing, who has tons and tons of content that you can purchase. Just reach out to whoever you bought your photo booth from. They typically have starter packets of marketing material and things to build out the website. So you can look there. And then if you don't have friends and family, go to your church or a charity that you stand behind or anything like that, or even post to Facebook Marketplace and offer a free photo booth to a wedding, and just do a couple free events to like just create content and get practice. But lots of ways to get content.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, you should learn to deliver these services as well. Like if you're marketing services like Glam and 360, if you don't actually know how to deliver the service, you really should figure that out before you start stealing content and marketing to your clients. Because the worst thing you can do is sell yourself as delivering Glam, and then you show up and you can't even take a decent photo. You know, that's a huge one.
Yeah. And so moving to like characters and things, we see this a lot also. People will share their photo strips or ask if anyone has photo strips with, say, Mickey Mouse or Blue's Clues or Monster High or whatever.
The Disney princesses, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty quickly shut down, and everyone lets them know how silly it is to use copyrighted material, but it's still out there. Companies like Disney are obviously very infamous for protecting their copyright. There's tons of news articles about them suing local places in Orlando, like child care facilities and things like that. And in general, if you don't have a contract, or I'm sorry, if you have a copyright on characters, you have to protect it all the time, or else when a larger company uses it, they can use the argument in court that Disney is cherry picking when they protect these characters. And then it creates a hole that they can win, and Disney would ultimately lose their copyright. So they do protect it very aggressively from everybody using it. So I mean, ultimately, there are ways to use characters like Mickey Mouse, and that would be through licensing. Obviously, that will never make sense for a one-off birthday party to get licensing. Typically, if you're making like a beanie and you want to put Mickey Mouse on it, it may make sense to get the licensing because now you're going to sell, a million beanies or whatnot. It may make sense for someone like Clay to reach out to Disney and see if he could get licensing to actually create some Disney authorized photo strips that he's selling. That may make sense. I'm not sure if he's looked into that or not, but as for a one-off company doing a birthday party, it's it's never going to make sense, and they do aggressively protect their copyright. So don't mess around with that.
I always hear about people saying like, oh yeah, they're not going to chase after me. And here in Southern California, LA, a few years back, Disney opened up an investigation on like some small backyard birthday party vendors. Like they started interviewing a company that was printing. They were interviewing people that were involved in a particular party that had Disney themed concepts, and they were small backyard birthday parties. So it's very easy for us to sit here and say they're never going to chase after me, but it happened. It's happened. I mean, they didn't move forward with anything with these vendors, but they definitely looked into it. They definitely researched and interviewed them. So it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. I know for a fact that they are very, very, yes. So
like, ask any photographer that's tried to do a Grinch holiday shoot. They've definitely been contacted by the Dr. Seuss I don't know, company or whatever it's called with cease and desist. Or there's a local company here in Vegas that recently wanted to do like I think it was a coffee shop or something that did a Bluey theme announcement, and they were going to have a Bluey character, and they were on the news and everything, and a couple of days later it came back that it was canceled because they got a cease and desist as well. Like, this is people's intellectual property. You can't just use it for your own personal gain.
Yeah. That topic comes up a lot with music and 360s too. Like when you get clients that want to use music that you don't have rights to. I mean, have you had any clients that have approached you and asked you for music that you can't use, Jason?
It's funny, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I see the arguments in our groups all the time that no one's ever going to care, and they've used it for so long and no one said anything. But no one has ever, like, we've done tons of 360s, and no one has asked us, maybe a few people have asked us to use certain songs, but no one has pushed back when we told them we can't. That, like, we've had zero opposition to people saying, no, you need to use this Britney Spears song or whatever. We use, of course, only, what else? What I'm looking for, royalty-free music.
Royalty-free music?
Yeah, we only use royalty-free music. And at the end of the day, like, even if they don't like the music, of course, we try to find music that's relevant and sounds good and fits our 360. But ultimately, when they post it, they're going to change the music anyways. Like, if you search and find 5 360s posted from your event, I can almost guarantee all 5 will have different songs attached to them. That's just what people do.
Yeah, yes,
So it's not
I
worth it.
agree. Yeah, whenever I'm working with a client with 360, we usually will work with them on selecting royalty-free music, and I'll send them like 2 or 3 tracks that I think might hit the vibe of what they're going for. But I always discuss with them, like, honestly, we're gonna spend all this time listening to all these tracks, and the reality is 90% of the people that get their videos, they're gonna overlay their own tracks. So a lot of my clients will choose and opt for no music at all. And this is something I encourage for them, because you really just, unless it's very specific, because I know some 360 providers have music synced to their 360 footage, and I get that part. My company doesn't really focus on that type of experience for 360. We focus on like the actual slow motion, and we don't get into syncing of music. So not having music has been a selling point for me, where I talk to my clients like, we really can make your life easier if we don't bother with music. It's not that we're lazy, it's just that people are going to overlay their own track. So all this time that you're investing into and obsessing over the music, it's not even going to play. It's not even going to be posted, and most of the clients that I have do agree with me, and we go soundtrackless. Although you'll see me post and I add my own soundtrack. So it looks like that's the music that's, being recorded for the 360. Most of the time it's not.
So, and I've seen a few people mention that they haven't heard of anyone getting sued in our industry for using music. So until someone does, they're going to keep on using it. And maybe nobody ever will. But whenever I see that argument, I just instantly think of Napster. I don't know how many people are old enough to remember Napster and the Napster lawsuits, but they didn't like sue one person at a time.
Jason.
What's that?
We're aging ourselves because we know.
But Napster didn't sue one person at a time. They waited collectively until they had a large enough case, and they sued 300,000 people, and many of which are still paying these like millions of dollars of fines that they got still today, years, like over a decade later. And a lot of people in the music industry got behind it and sued their own fans over this as well, because at the end of the day, like, even if you're a fan of an artist, they're not going to support you if you're stealing their music. If you like an artist, then pay for their music. And it's the same thing. Again, you can get licensing for an individual event, but it's never going to make sense. Just use it royalty free and let your guests add whatever music they want.
Yeah, you really get yourself into sticky situations, because what you're saying with like the artists, some of the artists don't even have rights to their own music. So just because you do an event for the artist that's singing on the track, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a right to it. It's really insane. But
yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, we did an event for Amazon, and the person from Amazon didn't even know if we had the rights to that. It wasn't even a music clip, it was like a sound clip, so there's like different, it's complex. Like I can't even we're not even experts enough to know enough to speak on that. But I just know when I discussed it with him, he said there's different types of licensing for music tracks. So like you can use it for this, you can't use it for that. So it's super complex, and you just open up a whole window when you start messing around with, stuff that's not royalty free.
Yeah, and royalty free still, I mean, there's still licensing. You need to make sure you're downloading the right license, and sometimes you have to, sometimes it's cheap, sometimes it's not. Just search through, and there's a ton of royalty free websites. Just, I think Ben Sound
subscription
is
based.
one that we land on a lot,
one?
but just Google search it. Ben Sound, I think it's called.
Bit Sound?
Here, let me type it into my BENSOUND.com. Ben Sound. It's one that we frequent a lot.
I'm not sure, but I think a couple subscriptions for images and for sound clips and video clips and stuff like that we pay like annual
even this podcast, the intro and outro sound that you don't hear anymore because it was too country. If you search around on Ben Sound, you'll come across it. We use that for the podcast as well. And as far as like using characters, we do get themed events, Disney Princess, Star Wars, and people like Clay. If you're not graphically inclined, people like Clay and Photo Booth Graphics, they can create Star Wars themed strips that look very good and capture the feel of Star Wars or Disney or Toy Story or whatever it is without actually using those copyrighted materials. So there's certainly ways. I don't want to say get around it, but you can create a very space themed
similar. Yeah.
That certainly puts across the feel of Star Wars without actually stealing any of the property.
Lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get pretty close if you look hard enough. There's a lot out there. It does require a lot of time and patience. I don't know, it seems better to be safe than sorry later.
Always.
Yeah.
Especially like for a client that is probably paying you like $500. Like don't risk your business for $500.
You know what I've always been curious about, Jason? I've always been curious about like incorporating the theme. So one of the common ones, we don't do private parties too much anymore, but like one of the common ones when you do like birthday parties and things like that is like the princess themes. I've always wondered if like you purchase, like a prop that's licensed, are you able to use that? Do you know, Jason, by chance, like if the item you have is already licensed?
Yeah, I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer this conclusively, but I would say yes, because that prop, like if you go to Amazon and buy a Princess Pack prop,
you purchased it, legit.
I'm sure they're licensed to use those already, as long as you're not using that commercially to sell a product. Like if your marketing has it in there, you might run into issues, but if you're using it privately at a party, I don't think there's any issues there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but I know that has crossed my mind before, like if you buy those props, and it does make sense, like it has to be licensed where you should be able to take a photo, but it's something that's crossed my mind. We don't use props so it's anymore, so it's not even a thing now.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were hitting on, that like that company has gone through the licensing process, and I really wonder if Clay's already looked into this or not, creating licensed photo strips that he can sell, because it would, I'm sure, be expensive and a lot of red tape to get started, but he would have a lock on the market in our industry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's definitely a demand for it.
So if you're listening, Clay, check out some licensing. In fact, there's a licensing expo coming up. You should go check it out. What else? Did we kind of hit all the key points of people stealing shit that doesn't belong to them? I guess stealing kind of encompasses that.
I just think that, it reflects on your integrity, your trust, and we talk about this a lot, Jason. We talk a lot about like trust in our industry, trust in our partners, our peers. Like it's a huge thing, you may end up needing someone to help you out with an event in LA, in New York, Vegas, and the last thing you want is to have that reputation of someone that is kind of in the gray. So it's a huge deal, and it's easy to not steal that content, because it takes you the same amount of effort to scour the internet to find these images as it does for you to actually produce them yourself.
Yeah, and if it's a product that you don't have yet, I guess we should kind of touch on that. For example, I'm kind of curious about the Sketchbot. I'm not a big fan, but I do see some popularity. I've seen it at a couple events. So I'm testing the waters, and I want to include it in a few quotes. So typically a lot of companies won't give you marketing material until you've purchased their product, which doesn't make sense to me, because that material would help me purchase their product.
Right.
But I don't have it, so I can't create my own content. But I can reach out to friends that I know do have it. So typically, the rule of thumb is don't use it in your marketing material publicly, because it's not your content, it's someone else's. But in like private quotes, we reached out to a friend that I know has it. He sent me some material, and we're using that to build quotes out and send it to people. And if we can get some bookings, and we'll purchase it and then create our own content for our marketing material and for our website and things like that.
See, I love that you brought that up, because that really is a testament of like the relationships and the trust that you have in people. Because if I don't have anything and I'm in the same boat as you, like if I'm thinking about offering a service and I don't have it yet, I don't have the marketing material, I don't have the software or hardware. I have friends I can reach out to and be like, hey, I'm thinking about marketing this to my client. Can you share some content with me? And the great thing is, if you have those awesome relationships, with people that trust you, they're going to be like, okay, here you go, and you're able to use that content. And I've had some folks who are okay with me, sharing it through my deck, or, even promoting it on my, I try not to post anything on public social media or anything like that, but depending on the type of relationship you have with your peers, it really does allow you a lot more freedom to use content that you might not necessarily have, and maybe you can't even pay for, because I don't think for that sketch spot you can even pay for that content. And that really solidifies the whole concept of what we're talking about, like trust and integrity, and like building those real strong relationships with like our peers is so, it really is a powerful tool that we have, our community, our network.
Mm-hmm. And it's all about communication. Even if you're a new company, if you even just post to social media and say, hey, I just created this website, does anyone care if I use some photos until I have my own? I wouldn't advise it, because like, it's so easy to get your own photos, but someone will say, yeah, sure, DM me, what do you need? Like, just communicate, just talk to people. But company's not letting you use their stuff until you buy it. That's a whole nother conversation. I actually had a company, I wanted to buy their product. I reached out to them. They told me no, not until you purchase. So I was purchasing parts of the product so I could reproduce my own. And then I ultimately ended up just designing my own product and not buying their product at all. That was
I've never reached out to the company itself, the different software companies themselves, about like attaining, but that does seem like counterproductive, because how can you sell that product if you don't have anything to showcase? I know that was something that came up with like backdrops and enclosures and stuff, and I see that they've changed that, where you can get a lot of this content without like the watermarking, and try to pitch it to your client before you actually sell it, which I think is great. I didn't know software companies would refuse to release content.
Well, hardware companies specifically. Look, I mean, I don't want to.
Software, both.
Hardware. There are hardware companies that I reached out to. I don't know about like software. Most of them have free trials anyway, so you could just take screenshots. I'm not sure what kind of software outputs you're looking for, but if it's like a booth company or something like that, and you want photos of setups,
Mosaic 360, before like a lot of people had 360s. I always thought that if you reached out, that they would share that content.
Perhaps there are some that do, but in my experience, I've reached out to at least 3 different companies in my time, and all 3 of them have told me specifically that it's only for people who have already purchased their products. I mean, what if I haven't purchased it? What am I going to do with it? Like, if I'm promoting your photo booth, who cares if I own it or not? Who cares if I'm never going to own it? I'm promoting it. Like, let me use your content.
It seems beneficial for that content to be available if you're trying to pitch it so that you can buy the software or hardware.
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing with Mosaic. Like, you needed the software to be able to produce the Mosaic, and you don't have any marketing, and you don't have any Mosaic content to promote it. I mean, I was lucky that we white labeled a Mosaic out here, so I had experience with that side, and I was able to like replicate a fake event and stuff for content. But that's interesting. I have never reached out for software or hardware that I didn't have for like content. But that's interesting. I mean, maybe the manufacturers and the software companies should reconsider this. It would make would make our jobs easier to sell if we had that content to sell the services or the product. That way we can buy it from you guys. Yeah.
I think that about wraps it up. Unless you have any closing thoughts, Lap?
Nope. Just try not to steal anybody's content.
Yeah. Don't steal.
Don't steal. People. Make some friends.
Make
some parties.
Yes. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah. Talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.
To keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group, Pro Booth Talk Community. If you enjoyed this podcast, consider showing your support by subscribing, liking, reviewing, or sharing this topic with someone in the industry.